Hey, Inspire Tribe, how's it going? Welcome to the Inspired live stream on the Inspired channel. We're excited that you're here. Thank you for joining us again. My name is Jean Nolan. This is my wonderful wife, Kristin Nolan, the wise voice to the side or behind the camera, and the wise thumbs in the live chat. Just waiting for you to say something.
Oh, even though people think it's really strange, but I just say hello and welcome everyone.
Yeah, people have sent us messages. Why is she not coming into the picture? Why is she hiding? Well, she's not hiding. She just prefers to be in the space she prefers to be in. That's totally fine. Inspired Tribe, it is, what day is it? Is it Thursday?
No, Thursday.
It's Thursday, February 24th, 2022. And we're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. For those of you who are fairly new to the Inspired live streams, this has been the mantra for 244 live streams. We're healthy, wealthy, whole, and free. A wonderful affirmation. Before we dive into today's topic, let me welcome you all. Let me go through the live chat. I'm going to put on my old broken glasses today and just read your names without any struggles. Hey, Alicia, good to see you. Black Sky is here. Johnny is here. Wonderful to see you. Marian aus Deutschland. Schön, dass du da bist. Morgan Blue aus Wien. Hey, wie geht's? Then we got also we got lots of German-speaking people here today. Phoenix Mid, auch aus Österreich. Welcome. Miss Patty from Cali, good to see you. Leslie, wonderful. Shane, Son of Tor, Angelo, Saskia, Kadia, Maya, Sebastian is here. Then, or Sebastian, depending on where you are. Margaret is here. Good to see you, Margaret. It's been a minute. Then we have Kristen here. Welcome, Brandon, J Frog. Then we got Fabiola Love from Montreal, Quebec. Joshua, good to see you, my friend. Sheila, Casey. Then we have, let me see, Linda, Alan, Peter, Barb, welcome. Carmen, so good to see you. Also from Canada. DNA, Paul, Michael, good to see you, my brother. Hologram, Tracy, Mark, Corinne, Asmus, I'm sure I butchered that. FM, M. Pierce, Nikki, Kathy, Allie, Nicola, Still Awakening. Yes, we're all still awakening. That's a good name. I love it. Tinan City, Rose, wonderful to see you. Grace, Joanne, Dragana. Well, Dragana says Germany. Hello, Dragana. But it sounds more like some ex-Yugoslavian country. Kako si, Dragana? Drago nam je da si tu.
Peter from Croatia.
Croatia. Kako si? Hrvatska. Hrvatska u kući, dobro. Then we got Andrea Maloney. So wonderful. Thank you for tuning in. I know I can't get all the names, and I apologize.
You see names I don't see. That's so weird.
Yeah. It's probably entering a different realm.
Oh my god.
So, tribe. Before we dive into today's topic, this all belongs together. But let's talk a little bit about what's happening right now and kind of put also the Ukraine thing into perspective. I try to reach out to our friends on the ground that are from the Ukraine, live in Moscow now, but she replied to me, and then we texted back and forth, I think at 4 a.m. or so. And a little bit of an overview. I'm by no means an expert, but I've been following the situation for years now. And the thing here is, as always, what the media is telling you, what your respective governments are telling you is mainly untrue, incomplete, pulled out of context, and also in many ways blown out of proportion. But really, I think what we need to understand about this is that there are so many interests at work here. And I just want to give you a quick overview of what has transpired and what has been kind of worrisome over the years is that you have a very, very, very strong alliance, which is NATO. This is geopolitically speaking. So the North Atlantic Treaty, and that has come about after the Second World War, which is mainly now Eastern European countries, but mainly Western Hemisphere countries that have formed this military alliance. And this is one power in this whole thing. And then you have another side of the power, which is in this equation, which is Russia, an equally powerful country, huge, biggest country in the world. And over the years and decades, there have been certain understandings and agreements between these two powers that lines in the sand that were constantly crossed and are still constantly being crossed. And without taking sides, we need to understand both perspectives here. Uh, the agreement between NATO and the Russians, starting in the 90s, were that NATO would not expand beyond the Eastern German border, which meant they were not going to accept other Eastern European countries into the alliance, simply because it would create a imbalance of power. The idea was to keep enough buffer space between Russia and the NATO alliance, enough countries and buffer space in between, which sort of function as a buffer for the balance of power. And so what NATO has done, and we need to be very aware of that, in a very aggressive manner over the years, is constantly crossed that line in the sand, taken in new countries, moving the eastern border of NATO further and further east. And Ukraine is that last uh, piece on the checkboard between NATO and Russia. And so this was a clear line in the sand. And then we need to understand that Ukraine consists of different ethnicities and people from different backgrounds, and that a portion of the Ukrainian people identify as Russians and have even declared so over the last years, that they want to belong to Russia. They have Russian heritage, they speak the language, and they are voluntarily saying this. They used to belong to Russia and they want to belong to Russia again. The Ukrainian government and its structures have been, manipulated, of course, from both sides. It's by all, for all intents and purposes, a very, very corrupt government. But then again, all of them are. And so what we have here now is kind of a put situation, because looking at it from all different angles, there's not much left, or wasn't much left, for the Russians to do than what they have done now. In our perspective, us, war, violence is never really an option, right? I mean, we talk about everything else but that. But it also needs to be understood that this was a huge propaganda push over the last months, and that the why this is happening now, there's a bigger picture and there's a smaller picture. Let's start with the smaller picture. Why it's happening now is because it's convenient to happen now. We have the biggest discontent with governments that we've ever seen. The people are fed up. They're waking up. They hate what their governments have been doing for the past years. The polls are in absolutely down to zero. So there's almost no support from the public for the respective governments. We see that here in the United States. We see that in Canada. We see that in most of Europe. And so this is a very welcome situation, because it distracts from what is happening in our countries, what is happening with domestic policy, what is happening with the COVID situation, what is happening with the vaccine mandates, all of that. It diverts the attention over to this conflict that is happening in Ukraine right now. And so we need to understand, as sinister and cynical as this sounds, that's how power groups and power hungry people operate. That's how powerful governments, and I'm not talking about the whole government, I'm talking about the sinister groups within those governments operate. They calculate very clinically, and they don't really care about human uh, sacrifice. They call this collateral damage. So people that are going to be injured and killed in these conflicts, they don't mean anything to the people that make these choices. Again, I'm not talking about the common person in the military. I'm not talking about the common person in the agencies. I'm talking about the inner core. So this is a very calculated situation that was going to happen sooner or later. Now, our friend Marina, who is from the Ukraine and lives in Moscow, has said it's hard to tell how big the support from the Russian people is. It appears to be somewhere around 50% for this. And she did confirm to me that the regions in question in Ukraine that are Russian and want to become Russian, that is authentic and true, that these people truly want to be a part of Russia and not Ukraine anymore. And so that all in itself is authentic. Now, the details, there's strategic things, there's military strategic things, there's economical strategic things, gas, oil, all those things. It's a big picture. But if we move into the even bigger picture, and this is how we're going to segue into today's topic, is that this is a decade of chaos on the outside, of huge transformation, of monumental changes. And I'm not talking about necessarily the Great Reset in itself or how it's been portrayed. I'm talking about energetic and frequency changes that happen regardless of what we call them. So change is happening, whether, which side it's coming from. That's just how it manifests in the physical world. But change is happening. We can't ignore that, and we can't undo that. It's already begun. It's already begun to happen in such a monumental way that we really need to ask ourselves: how do we assimilate? How do we co-create those changes in a positive manner? How do we survive? Literally, because this is just the beginning. At the beginning. We're first quarter of 2022. Is the end, towards the end of that, and we are at the beginning still of this decade, and it's only going to get more and more intense as time carries on. And the reason being that this group of entities and people have a timeline. They see 2030 as a big, huge first base for this fourth industrial revolution. So a lot of it should be done by then. A lot of it should be already implemented. And they want to basically completely transform human society according to their views. And you can read about this. As I said, The Great Reset is a book by Klaus Schwab, but there's so many others that have contributed to that vision over the years. Started, centuries ago, but in the 20th century, you had a lot of big players when it comes to that. And you know by now what this vision is. It's a technocratic society. It's a completely digital society. It's a completely controlled society. It's the opposite of freedom. So that's the vision. And if you don't bring about change through learning, an expansion of consciousness, and through voluntary steps, then you bring about change through chaos. And so we've seen this. The past 2 years have been a sign of this. Emergency, chaos, insecurity, doubts, fears, all of those things speak to the reptilian brain, speak to the survival brain. And so this is what all of this is intended to do. Its intention is to keep us in a constant struggle for survival, confusion, fear, doubt. And so we're going to see, it for 2 years now. It was a health emergency. Now we're seeing it becoming a some sort of violent conflict in certain areas of the world that are highly impactful for the whole world. But we're going to see more of everyday life impacts. We're going to see maybe power outages. We're going to see, cyber attacks. We're going to see food shortages. We're going to see these things simply because they're planned and they can do it. And so all of what we talk about and do is mainly about inspiring and empowering people to do three things in their lives that make the difference between survival or death. But they don't just allow you to survive, they actually allow you to thrive. Because one thing we need to remember, it doesn't really matter what crisis was at hand in human history. There were always those who perished, those who barely survived, and those who thrived. Now, We want to be always part of the group that thrives and is actually a driver for positive co-creation and positive change. But in that, and we've seen this over the last few days, because we talked about, how you as a natural being enter the system and how you can exit the system. We talked about personhood or personship. We talked about the legal system versus the natural or common law system. We talked about these things, and a lot of the messages and questions that we received were in the vein of, you haven't given us the whole picture. You haven't told us how to do things. You haven't told us what form to sign. You haven't told us, do you even know how to do these things? And we do know what has worked for us. We do know what has been possible for us, but it is not our intention to put out a blueprint and a game plan for your life, because it's your life. What is our intention is to spark and inspire deep thought on your part, inspire questioning things, inspire and maybe put out that spark to change things in your life. But we are not the ones who tell people, this is what you do, this is what you don't do, go left, go right, say yes, say no. If you are asking yourself at this point, what form do I need to sign to exit the legal system? Then it requires a lot more research and inner standing. It's an inner spiritual process. Because, in a nutshell, just to give you a quick answer for that, there is no form that you could sign to exit the legal system. Natural beings do not sign forms. That is, it's it in a nutshell. But it isn't a logical step necessary and a logical understanding. This is about a spiritual understanding. This is about, and this is the first thing among these three things that you are going to need over the next years, over the next decade, to really thrive. First and foremost, survive, but thrive. The first thing is a spiritual connection. And here's where everyone who calls himself an atheist, or who says that's all crap, spirituality, it's all just make-believe, it's woo-woo, it's maybe time for you to log off here, because then we're not the right people. Then we are not in alignment with each other, and that's fine. There's no criticism. That's just an observation, because that is the foundation of everything that we call beautiful, that we call successful, that we call wonderful in our lives, is this spiritual connection. And to be completely honest, nothing really was successful or even easy or in a state of flow until we had that spiritual connection. And that spiritual connection is the most personal and intimate thing in your life. It's even more intimate than the relationship with the loved ones around you. This relationship with God, with the Creator, is very, very intimate. It's very, very personal. It happens between you and the Creator only. And even though you might describe portions of it to others, you can never fully describe this. But that is the foundation. Those who do not wish to enter a utopian, or better, dystopian, technocratic society where their souls and their consciousness have no space, where they literally merge with the mechanics and robotics of artificial intelligence, if that's not the path you see yourself on, then the other path is a true, authentic spiritual path. And that doesn't mean walking around in white robes and singing Kumbaya all day. As I said, it's an intimate, personal thing. And then when you establish that connection, which through prayer, meditation, spending time in nature, maybe hugging a tree every once in a while, maybe putting your feet, soaking your feet in real water, in a real river, stream, and feeling it, really reestablishing that connection. Then the second tier in those three tiers is going to be mental strength. When you have spiritual connection, spiritual strength, you need mental strength. What does that mean? Through that spiritual connection, that allows you, because it gives you a invisible backbone, because all of a sudden you're not all alone. You're not just by yourself. you're reconnected to consciousness, to the grander, bigger consciousness, to higher consciousness. And so that gives you always a feeling of being guided, led, and being in the presence of something bigger, which is very empowering and very helpful, especially when you're doing great changes, making great changes in your life. So when you then go into the mental field, and mental field, I mean beliefs, habits, all those things that define our lives, that define our daily lives. Um, it's going to require great strength to change habits. It's going to require great strength to change beliefs, to go deep enough, to heal, to really go into the depths of what has been holding you back. For us, for me, it never really worked until I had that spiritual connection. It gave me a true sense of purpose again. And so then in with personal responsibility or your real self-responsibility, you go and create a mental environment, which means you create beliefs for yourself and habits for yourself that serve you and that inspire stability, strength, perseverance, dedication, conviction, because that's what's going to be needed. It's already needed. So it is important to stabilize yourself psychologically, mentally, and to truly heal in that area and to become very balanced in that. Because over the next, as you've seen, the world has been bombarded like never before with hypnotic messages, with fear mongering at a scale we've never seen before, and it's going to increase. They're going to turn up the volume, and you're not going to be able to fully escape it unless you really disconnect from everything and spend time solely in nature. Then you're still going to pick up some of the frequencies, but you're at least not going to be exposed to the words, to the sounds, to the visuals. But that's going to be needed because this is only going to intensify for a while yet. We're not saying there isn't light at the end of the tunnel. There's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, but it requires our light to connect with that and bring that about. It won't work if we don't truly ignite our own lights. So that is highly important. That's the second tier, from the spiritual connection to the mental, psychological strength, balance, true balance. And how you find that is individual. It's different. For some of you, it's a deep healing journey. For others of you, it is through doing true yoga and meditation. For others, it is by talking to others and seeking coaching or help from others. There are so many ways to do this. There's not one way to do this. And the third tier that's going to be required for people to survive and thrive in the following years is physical strength to the best of your ability. You know, what do you put into your body? The foods. We just did a beautiful interview with Dr. Mercola yesterday that aired today. And he's a shining light in that area, brings a lot of wisdom. And it might not be for everyone, but maybe for a lot of you. It might be just the right person, just the right thing. But it is important that we become physically healthy as best as we can, that we become strong, that we become resilient, that we become discriminative. I think that's the word, sometimes they just slip away from my mind. That we discriminate and truly realize what empowers us and what doesn't empower us physically. And as you can see, so far, I've only talked about things that are solely 100% in your control. Your spiritual connection, your mental and psychological strength, and your physical strength are fully 100% in your control. Whatever you can do, you can do. I haven't included community, family, and all of that because that's the second big step. But these are things you can do. You can start today. You can implement today. Because I can tell you one thing, and that is for certain. What we're seeing in terms of instability in the world, what we're seeing in terms of crisis, even if it's artificially produced, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What we see is it is going to increase for a while. And that is not fear mongering. That is not, kind of putting dark thoughts out there. That's the momentum that we're in. And that's the cornered rat syndrome. This awakening business has scared the living Satan out of these entities, and they are cornered, and they're acting like cornered rats do. They lash out. They do illogical and irrational things in many ways, but it's what they're doing. And for a little while yet, that's how it's going to unfold. So we truly need to be. But even if that wasn't the case, isn't it wonderful to actually do these things in your life, to have a spiritual connection, to have mental, psychological balance, power and strength, physical strength? Aren't these actually um, all natural parts of our lives that we've forgotten about, that we've ignored for the longest time? Isn't this really how life should be? So, regardless of the external happenings, this is something that you should really, really focus on. And with those things, I can promise you, come other opportunities and successes. If you are strong, if you're connected, if you're healthy, then usually abundance and financial success, then usually relationships, beautiful relationships, and other things in your life that you desire are happening or coming to you. That's just a natural consequence of these things. But it is so important, and this is what I really, really want to emphasize, that you need to take responsibility for your own life, for your own actions, for your own well being. I mean, a lot of times, what I really want to say is you got to pull your head out of your ass and really step up and really become responsible and stop pointing fingers, stop blaming others, stop blaming uh, any kind of system around you for shortcomings or for poor health, all those things, because it won't help you. Even if it's true, it won't help you. What will help you first and foremost is strength, health, and then you can go and be a fruitful co-creator in more positive and healthy systems, which is what we desire to do anyways. But you gotta pull your head out of your ass and get going. I mean, we've seen this a million times. People get pumped up, they get inspired, they show up, even come to a seminar, do these things, and then when things get uncomfortable, which they will, change is uncomfortable. You first need to experience all of it. Um, then they back out. They go back to their old habits that don't serve them. But all these things that we've lived through and that we are always living through, because life is a continuation, it doesn't just stop after you have completed some challenges, we have lived through. And the understanding of what it means to be a healthy being doesn't necessarily happen while you're healthy. The understanding of what it means to be a truly healthy being usually begins to happen while you're unhealthy, because that's the first time you're being challenged with that. And so that's where it begins. If you truly want to be free, you need to learn how to feel free while you are in your physical environment, still somewhat in a controlled environment. You need to first understand this. A form's not going to make you free. And if I gave you a path, a blueprint, how you exit the system, you're not going to be free just because you have a blueprint. Because when you are confronted with this system that will eventually confront you, it will try to force itself on you. If you do that, it will try to pull you back in. We have experienced all of this. You need to know who you are. You need to already breathe, feel, exude this, because if you don't, it's not going to work. No outer status makes you free. No document makes you free. I mean, you can give back your citizenship from whatever country you're in, and then you join some assembly or join the real authentic government. There's many groups that do that, right? Or you get a common law ID, or you get all these things. These things don't make you free. What happens in here is what makes you free. What happens up here is what makes you free. That's where all of this begins. And then the manifestations in the outside begin. And if it didn't happen yet for you, is because you weren't ready yet. So you need to decide to get ready too. And as we said before, we're not necessarily saying, hey, go and burn all bridges and break all bonds and go leave the system. What we're saying is educate yourself. What we're saying is meditate. What we're saying is realize who you really are. And what does realize mean? It means to truly step into it. And before that, nothing happens. You're just going to chicken out and when the moment of truth comes. And why we're saying this is because we've walked through these steps and walked down this path and have truly, really experienced all of this ourselves. And when for the first time you're confronted with a force that believes of itself to be absolute and ultimate, if you don't stand in your true power, you have no chance. But if you do, there's literally nothing you cannot do. So, as I've said, and I'll continue to say, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. This is a marathon, and we need to be prepared for that. We need to get ready in all areas of our life, spiritually, physically, mentally. Beautiful things are happening. Beautiful momentum of freedom is happening everywhere. I know, and I need to get deeper into this to really see who is doing what and who's in charge. We need to do that. The trucker convoy has started in the United States. We're going to try to get more information, see who's putting that on, and what people are involved, which is also important. But it's important to understand these truckers are not going to solve your problems. See, the truckers in Ottawa, even, let's say, the plan had worked completely. And let's say that their peaceful protest in Ottawa had led to the letting go of all mandates in Canada. That wouldn't have solved the underlying condition that most people have, that they perceive themselves to be little, limited, and dependent on outside forces like a government, on outside forces like leaders, and that their own life and their own purpose doesn't mean a lot. That problem would not have been solved. And so we need to understand that no trucker, no protest, no political leader, no one outside of us can solve these problems for us. We need to go within first. We need to find that inner truth. And just because I'm telling you this doesn't mean you found it in here. You might have heard it from me and it might feel good and might sound good, but doesn't mean you've realized it. Just because you know something mentally doesn't mean you have actualized it in your life. And this comes through practice. This comes through meditation. It comes through a daily showing up. It's the part that most people don't want to hear because they want the magic. They want the
Form.
Yeah, the form. Where do I sign? They want the lotto ticket, the winner. They want the savior. We've been taught to look outside of us for the solution.
Well,
And
that's what brought us into that mess in the first place.
you should have heard Christine this morning and last night, and in between. I think there were 2 or 3 powerful rants that she went on, and I told her, why don't you just do the live stream today? And she said, no, I rant here, you rant there. But it's what she's like. She beautifully said it. This attitude of looking for saviors outside of us is what got us into this mess. And I want to specifically address those who call themselves Christians. And this is my belief, when you look for Christ outside of you, you still look for the personification. But what about the Christ consciousness within us? And I believe this was truly Jesus's teaching, for us to find the same consciousness that Jesus has and had. And so this is what happens within. This is why this is an intimate journey. And then when we say believe in yourself and solve this for yourself, it doesn't mean you, the human ego. It doesn't mean you, Jack Smith, or Pamela Carlton, or whatever your name might be. It doesn't mean you, the human physical ego self. You, the higher self. You, the connected to all that is self. That is what is the solution to all the problems in your life and the accelerator for all the desires in your life and everything that you want to experience. And so this is why it starts here. And there is no form to sign that will allow you to be free. You just have to realize that you always were. This is your nature. And I truly believe that this inner work will ultimately really transform the world completely. It will eliminate in the long run the conflicts that we're seeing now, and it will completely take away any and all breeding ground for darkness and evil and controlling forces. Because once you're in that knowing of who you are, you cannot be controlled anymore. It doesn't work because you are not fearful anymore. And as Christine so beautifully said, the opposite of fear is not love, it's freedom. The opposite of fear is freedom. This is really a beautiful understanding and should mark the conclusion of today's live stream. Before we quickly talk about the auto retreat and an open invitation, we also want to thank our contributors today. I see Alan. Thank you so much for your generous contribution.
And Real Truth.
Real Truth. Thank you so much. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you for your contribution. And as we've said, and I want to emphasize something here. When we talk about the auto retreat, when we send out an open invitation, what we're not saying is we're the only ones who can do this, and if you don't come, you can't be free and you can't really find yourself and you can't really find your inner strength. No, not at all. As a matter of fact, we know we're not the right ones for everyone. We cannot be. But for those of you who feel connected and feel inspired, we want to join you. We want to invite you to join us and go a few steps deeper into this journey. The Yato retreat, and Yato stands for You Are the One, is really about creating an energetic shift in your life. It's about exploring how deep your true self really is, how expanded you really are, and how much broader and bigger your life can become through that. And in a few days that we're going to spend together, in these few days, those 3-4 days from May 5th till May 8th on Cape San Blas, Florida, we go deep into deep meditations. We're going to explore some of the things that are holding you back, and we're going to go beyond them. We're going to leave the comfort zone. We're going to actually leave it and go so far out that the only thing you can do is trust, that the only thing you can do is really fall into your true self. And if you show up just with the decision that you're willing to do that, it's going to happen. And you're going to feel things you might have never felt before. And you're going to feel an inner strength and an inner power you might have never felt before. One of the most beautiful things for us is to observe this process and to see how people that have been conditioned and limited in their beliefs by their surroundings, by their families, by their communities as they grew up, finally experiencing something like expansiveness, freedom, unconditionalness, which is our true nature. This is what truly is our nature. It's not something that we need to learn. We need to remember it and reconnect with it. And that's really the main aim of the You Are the One retreat, the Yato retreat. That's what we do over the days. There's a lot of silence involved. There's a lot of going within involved. This is not your "we're gonna hype you up" Tony Robbins seminar. And we love the hype you up Tony Robbins seminars. This is actually the really going within. Christine's looking at me because she needs to add something.
No, I'm good. I'm just listening.
So, and we would love to invite you to come join us, be with us. For those of you who've already signed up, you're going to get more in-depth information in the following weeks and months leading up to the event.
Months? There are not so many.
There are not so many months. Yeah, like 2 months left or so. So, last but not least, there's going to be a limited group size.
Yeah, and we already have a lot of
signups. So if you feel inspired to do that, send us an email to info@inspiredchannel.net. Just put Yato in the subject line. We're going to send you the information. And if you feel it, if you say, hey, yeah, this is a definite yes for me, please do sign up sooner rather than later. The reason for our limited group size is simply that We love to connect deeper on a more one-on-one basis. And after 3-4 days together, we want both you and us ourselves to have the feeling that we have made new friends and not just met with strangers for a little while. And that we cannot do with hundreds of people present. So that's why it's a limited group size. And we really look forward to it. It's a beautiful thing, a spiritual, all-inclusive physical experience. Just beautiful. So once again, if you feel inspired, send us an email to info@inspiredchannel.net. Put Yaro in the subject line, and we will see you there, Inspired Tribe. This was it from us for this week. There might be updates coming. We're hoping to get more information from the Ukraine on the ground, what we all can do, because I don't believe there's ever a point of no return where you cannot you take it down a notch and go more peaceful. We can simply envision that this happens in freedom, in peace, and that people's wishes and people's freedom is respected. And that we can maybe overcome our constant fear-based and lack-based actions that we take in the world, and we can find more common ground. It's just, as you know, in a situation like this might sound utopian, but it's just something I'm never willing to give up on, ever. I always believe there's another way. And so we'll continue to explore this other way together. We'll see you again on Monday, 2 p.m. Central. If anything happens in between, if we get updates, we will let you know. But until then, be blessed, be free, and be inspired.